to my series, which is Unveiling the Secrets of Executive Presence. As a certified image professional and in my business style for life, I have the good fortune to work with some of Australia's most influential women who are not afraid of showing their strength and courage with a powerful visual brand. These women appreciate that an authentic image makes them even more credible, confident, and impressive than they often appear on paper. But as an ambitious woman, the journey to the C-suite can be filled with insecurity, fear, judgment, and second-guessing all around whether your executive presence and gravitas is going to be enough. Executive presence is one of the most important skills to learn for success in business. It's also probably the least understood, which is why I decided to start this series. Unveiling the Secrets of Executive Presence provides insights into how to develop and use executive presence as a powerful tool for career advancement through interviews with highly respected leaders in their fields who concur that executive presence is a skill that should be learned and mastered to make a very real difference in the world, and they share how to use it to achieve success both personally and professionally and what executive presence has meant for them. Now, today I have the pleasure of interviewing Delmae Bauer. Delmae started in sales at the age of 23, supporting others to success. As a trailblazer, became one of the first women in the financial services industry and in the top 10 in sales working part-time. Delmae then went on to build her own financial services business in a time when it was very much a male-dominated industry. As a creative, Delmae was producer and presenter for her TV show shown on Foxtel, Older, Wiser, Feeling Younger. Delmae then moved into coaching thousands around the world on trust-based selling and supporting the founder and owner in an entrepreneurial environment to transform the business from startup to a multi-million-dollar business, helping to extend the lifetime value of high-end clients from 3 months to 4 years. Delmae was also involved in product development for clients and the business. Currently retired, living in Melbourne, filling her time as an author and spending more time with the grandchildren. That's quite a journey. That's quite a story, Delmae. And I know that you've had lots of things that have gone on in your life and so much wisdom to share with everyone today. So can you, of all of what's happened in your life, can you tell us a time when you first realised the importance of executive presence in your incredible career?
Well, that's a big question. I think I realised fairly young how important it was to dress well. And I tended to, particularly early on in the sales, to tend to wear, the corporate skirt and top and a blazer kind of thing. So, and because I was often in and maybe we can get into this later, but because I was often the only woman walking in the door, that created interest in itself. But the real aha for me was I was presenting. I was one of 4 presenters in front of the men. The room, I was the only female in the room, and I had a bright coloured dress on, and the other presenters walked in and they totally ignored me, totally ignored, at the speaker's table. And I'm just kind of like, what's going on here? And despite the fact that the room was absolutely full of men and I'm the only female, brightly dressed, and that was a really defining moment for me. It was like, I have to figure something out. Something's wrong here. Something's just not working. Because I was going to be working more and more with men as well, presenting, so I had to do something there. So that was really one of the biggest defining moment for me.
So in realising that something was wrong, did you have a sense as to what direction you had to go forward in to be able to make some changes and not have this situation occur again?
Definitely, I felt it was my clothing for some reason,
Mm.
and I couldn't figure out why.
Mm.
Because it was brightly coloured. I was dressed well. Um, so there had to be something there, either my voice. I kind of wondered if there was something about my voice as well. Um, but definitely because I was the only one in the room and ignored, it was like, no, that, so it had to be clothing, but I didn't know how to fix it really.
Mm. What strategies did you use to amplify your own executive presence? And we're talking about executive presence in terms of, how you present visually, also vocally and verbally as well. So what did you feel you had to do to capture the attention of the men in the room working in a very competitive environment?
Well, one of the things that I did do is because there was only, I had a brief period of time from that experience to the next presentation,
Mm.
and I went Googling because I, used to do singing many, many moons ago. So I had some sense of understanding as to voice projection and things like that. But I realized that maybe my voice might have been too high, or there was something about my voice that I needed help with. And I got online and I found this lady in the US. I have no idea her name. And she happened to be awake when I called her at the middle of the night, my time. And I said, help, I need help. And so she gave me probably about 20 minutes coaching on the phone there and then. And then she sent me a pack of her things to go through. And it was just breathing exercises that she gave me as to, okay, and then, and sound, making these sound, and you kind of stand in the corner and make these funny sounds. And that made a huge difference because I was lowering my voice and projecting it in a totally different way. And it was just a really simple exercise. It was like 5 minutes practice and you could get it. So that was like a huge aha for me, to be able to make that fast of an adjustment.
What did that turnabout do for you? Did it?
Well, definitely I did start, I felt, to get more respect, and I could walk into the room and speak and people would start to listen to me. So definitely it did make a difference.
So before, in that first situation you described earlier, that you, although you were brightly dressed, you felt that you were just invisible. That
Yeah, totally invisible.
pay attention to you. It was almost like you were the tea lady. They walk past you.
Like I wasn't there. I was not there because no one spoke to me. I was ignored. So yeah.
And what was the importance of you having presence in that environment at that time?
Well, as a presenter, you want authority.
Mm.
You want to be and need to be respected for starters. And you need to be seen. And the funniest thing, well, it wasn't funny at the time. And I just think it was just the whole situation in the room. The presentation was being recorded. All the other presentations were recorded. Mine got halfway through or didn't even start getting recorded until halfway through. And it was the most bizarre thing. The tech guys, they don't know what went wrong. Just my presentation was half missing. So there was something in their brain as well that they hadn't connected that to do their job, or I don't know what it was. It was just bizarre.
Well, let's hope that, the mindset of people and the appreciation of having women in the room at the boardroom table doing the presentations at high level sales has totally turned the corner now. I won't ask you how many years ago that actually was. But suffice to say that that's a real challenge to have to overcome, to try and create a presence in a room where there's a lot of male ego and dominance and, competition, that you're facing, and you are, I'm not going to say we're the weaker sex because we're far from that, but probably back then deemed to be. And what's a woman doing in this environment, and why should we listen to her, etc. Did you find that you felt that in that sort of scenario?
In that particular scenario, yes. And also way back when I first started in sales, which was a male dominated industry. And I was, like I said, you said there, I was in the top 10. And there was kind of you're what? There was a little bit of, how can that be? You're working part time, we're working full time. And there was a little bit of that there, I think. Right, that was
a bit of jealousy.
Yeah, I think so. It was like, oh, you mean to say you can actually sell? It was kind of, yeah. It was a really strange experience in those days, yeah.
Okay. So you went off and you had your a little bit of voice training on how to project yourself. So what other specific strategies? I know you're retired now, but you've only recently retired, haven't you?
Yes.
So you were still working very actively, probably up to
probably only about 18 months or so ago.
Yes. So worked a little bit into the pandemic and then decided to retire, as a lot of people did. So going back to that, what are the specific strategies that you would have used to amplify your executive presence in the capacity that you had as a very senior person in this organisation?
Well, definitely that, and I can't, was it about 5-6 years ago or so that I met with you? And what happened is I knew that I had an important presentation coming up, and I looked at my wardrobe and I went, this is just not working. I need some help. And actually before I came to you, I had looked for some help elsewhere, and I had someone come to my home and do a wardrobe audit and help me buy a few things, but it still just didn't work. It just was not right. And I had this presentation coming up, and I asked my PA, I said, I desperately need you to find someone to help me. Just go do it. Find whoever. And she found you.
I remember the day of the phone call. I remember the phone call well, actually.
And I was impressed with what I saw, because I thought, oh, okay, you clearly know what you're doing. And so you helped me get a couple of outfits, pretty well right away. And the journey with you has been amazing from that perspective, helping me put together clothes. And because I was so busy, I was traveling like every second week to Sydney from Melbourne. So I was away a lot. I was doing international travel as well. So I barely had time to scratch myself, literally. And it was like I really needed that help to pull together my wardrobe so that I could have easy for packing, travel. It had to be, maybe a weekend away. So I had to have a variety of things for different types of situations, but not a lot of bulk. So that was really important to me as well. And to be able to end up just pulling together a small pack of clothes and know that they'd mix and match and that you'd look great was just a lifesaver.
Are there any other strategies that you would have called on to be able to really project yourself, as being the leader that you were then?
Well, the presentations were a core to my credibility. and a core to the men respecting me. I did find that once my wardrobe was starting to improve, the respect did rise. And they would start to come to me at the events and start to actually engage and look for my help. And I was also consulting with them throughout the year in between as well. But it's certainly the voice, the clothing, helped lift my authority. And the other thing that was a challenge for me in presenting is that the guy that I was working with is extremely tall and large. And so I'm quite a short, petite woman and like almost half his size. So on stage, when I was on stage, I had to make sure I stood away from him so that the height was not too exaggerated and he wasn't too overpowering. So there was a lot of little things like that that I had to be aware of and consider when presenting as well. And I had to probably project myself even further than maybe most because I had this imposing large character beside me. It was almost, I wouldn't say competing, but in a way it was competing, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. They say that a lot of the CEOs are generally much taller than the average person anyway, and that goes for men and women. So if you are wanting to stand out, in that sort of environment, it's really important to use all of the skills and strategies that you have in your toolbox to be able to isolate yourself, differentiate yourself, and actually, be noticed and heard for, the message that you're trying to get across. So, in your opinion, what are some of the misconceptions about executive presence that you're aware of, and how can individuals work to overcome them?
The misconceptions, I do see a lot of women not dressing to their level.
What? And is it a misconception that they think they don't have to, or?
Well, that's possible, or they're too busy, or they almost feel they need to dress like the men, like with a more corporate, staid, to have that presence. Whereas I love colour, and I've always felt intuitively that colour can give you presence. And with what you've created for me, help me deliver that with colour, but still with authority. Choosing the right colours that gives that authority without having to be the black and white corporate stereotype.
Yes, well, I mean, colour has enormous psychological meaning attached to it, not just for the wearer, but for whoever is in front of you as well. So that's where, yes, we very much considered what colours you needed to wear for those on stage presenting type scenarios versus what colours you could wear in a more consulting, mentoring type role where you have to be more relatable and not so dominating or domineering, or not so authoritative, I should say, but more on the same page where you can allow that person to be able to open up and talk freely with you. Different to being on stage where you're needing to capture their attention and have them listen to every single word that you're saying.
The other thing too, Julie, I noticed is, for the last 15 years of my working life, I was actually working virtually way before everybody else was doing virtual. Yeah. And so on a one-on-one consulting, I was consulting virtually. And like you say, it was a very different feel and it was a more relaxed feel. And they're only seeing you from your waist up. So I didn't find any issues on the one-on-one with the consulting for me, it was more that room presence, that presentation, that engaging, environment. That was probably for me the most important.
Yeah. Yeah. What, I mean, you obviously was successful once we fixed that and you felt empowered in, the outfits that you were wearing for those particular events. Um, what would have happened if we hadn't have done that for you?
I think my career would have floundered, definitely floundered. Yeah. And I probably would have been seen to be, maybe the office manager at the back of the room
Mm.
rather than having the presence that I needed to have, definitely.
Mm. So it sounds like it really accelerated your earning capacity and your career and your
100%. 100%. And I think that's really the thing, Julie, that and maybe you find this is that women probably don't value themselves. They don't want to spend the money on themselves because as women we tend to want to care for our family. We want to, the last people that we spend on is ourselves. And to spend money, and it's not cheap to dress well. You can do it well, but to have, a few really good quality pieces in the wardrobe is just so worthwhile. Just so worthwhile. Even as I'm retired, I still find I love the comments that I get from people. And they always saying, you dress so well. And I had someone say to me the other day, because they'd come around just for coffee and some, casually, and they were dressed in their jeans. And I said, well, you're just going to have to put up with me the way I am because I don't have jeans. And so, I do dress very differently to other people and they notice it. And it makes, in retirement, you don't get the kudos that you get at work. And so it's a different way of getting kudos and feeling good about yourself, regardless of whether you're working or not.
Interesting. I think it's about setting standards for yourself as well and having a level of self-respect that, there's a line you don't cross. And that's just for yourself. I'm not saying that's in general, but there's
Yeah.
a line you don't cross in terms of what's acceptable for you, in terms of how you put yourself together, and you stick to that. And that's what gets you through. That's what gets you through each day. But it's a really interesting comment that you made because it leads me into the next question, which is all about the pandemic and the fact that you've already mentioned that you have been working virtually for a long time. So you pretty much probably just rolled on into this as though it was, business as usual for you. But for many women, it wasn't. It was a really, really tough period. It wasn't just the isolation, the fact you couldn't go to work. It was how do I, as a woman who potentially is a mother, is a daughter, a sister, or everything else, how do I be everything to everyone locked up in my home? How am I supposed to dress myself every day? And I know there were lots of fashion faux pas over the pandemic, and women really struggled with how do I dress? Do I dress for work? Do I dress, with the UGG boots on down below and put a jacket on? Do I wear makeup? Do I not wear makeup? What's my background meant to look like? It was really, really confusing, which is why, I did a lot of webinars on that particular topic. But given that it had such a profound impact on women and we all fell into this very complacent style of dressing where everyone wanted to be comfortable, but what does comfortable mean? And are we now heading back into a more professional style of dress, or is this complacency still evident? I know you're retired, so you're not sort of out there working, but what's your impression? What have you seen, noticed maybe even from watching news readers, because I know you also watch Sky News and other channels. what are you seeing as being the biggest shift in how women present themselves now versus pre-COVID?
I think there's the casualness and the lack of, at least what I'm seeing, is professionalism. And even just going to, because I do go out and I do go to meetings and things, and I see everybody in black or brown or, these dreary colours, even casually. Like I went to a lunch last Sunday in the city, and they were dressed neatly and tidily, but every single one was in jeans. And I was the only one slightly dressed up. And I could tell walking in, it's like, oh, no, it's like, and I just laugh these days because I am just always dressed differently to everybody else. But I see the casualness, and that to me immediately reduces your credibility, because I know when I walk into these meetings, even though I'm not presenting, I'm not doing anything like that, I'm respected because I walk in that door dressed well, and people do stop and listen to me. Whereas if I was dressed in, baggy jeans and everything else like everybody else does, I would just be one of the crowd. And it's so important.
It's interesting. We were watching the news this morning, and there was a segment on Uber deliveries, and the CEO of Uber, they were filming him in a car, and actually even my husband said, isn't it interesting that there's a CEO of a big organisation and he's dressed in a simple t-shirt and a pair of jeans? I said, yes, well.
Well, I think Steve Jobs
and Mark Zuckerberg, and it sort of became the Silicon Valley uniform that everyone could show up dressed like that. And that's fine for specific industries where, IT is a perfect example of that sometimes. But then you go into different industries like advertising, for example, you'll find people dressing very creatively, quite, authentically, quite quirky. And then, but financial services, which is where you came from, that's very professional. That's people expect, when I'm meeting a financial planner or a financial services person, I expect them to be well presented, in everything in its place, tidy, organised, because that's a reflection of your work ethic as well.
Definitely. But in sales too, it's definitely important.
Yeah. I mean, I used to go do presentations to organisations that had large sales teams, and it would always be on how to project a professional image, all the little things that you shouldn't do that could sabotage your image, because that was a reflection of, the corporate values, and, it was all really important to present well so that you could gain trust and respect really quickly, so that you could get your message across and create those meaningful relationships. But I just find it really fascinating that people, and women in particular, have become a bit complacent and are thinking that maybe it's okay now that I don't have to worry about, having my regrowth of my hair colour done on a regular basis. I don't have to really bother about putting on makeup. I don't really have to. Can I wear flat shoes now? I don't have to bother about wearing heels. And there's all sorts of arguments for all of those things as to why you should, why you shouldn't. But um, I'm just watching with great interest as to what happens. I think now that we are having a lot of these major events come back into the fold, like Spring Racing Carnival is about to start in Melbourne, so that's an excuse for women to dress up and, pull out their finery and look fabulous, and I'm hoping that all of those sorts of things, as we really are coming out of this, will start to instill this, need for women to go back to the, have a bit of dopamine dressing, use colour, use nice things, have quality things in your wardrobe that when you pull them out, you put them on and you feel great because everything about that particular piece works for you from a style perspective. It fits you well, you look great in it, you know, you feel fabulous in it. I would love to see that, turn around again.
And I think it, I agree with you that it would be great if they did, because to me it shows a lack of disrespect for yourself, taking a casual approach. And I just, right from when I started working as a mum, I would be working part-time, so I had a young family. And I always treated my day regardless. I would get dressed prior to 9 o'clock in the morning, and I'd dress as though I was for work, even if I was at home. And I would dress well so that when I got on the phone, I still sounded and felt professional. And that's just been my whole life work ethic, because I did work from home a lot with the children. And then obviously the last 15 years, I would get up before even though I knew that I wouldn't be seeing anyone face to face on Skype or Zoom or anything like that, I would still dress myself for work so that I felt good about myself before I got on the phone and started to talk to people, because it just comes through on your voice. So that was just ingrained in me. I take it as a given, and I guess I find it a bit strange that other people don't.
No, I think it's an old trick from out of a sales training manual from years back where when you were doing your sales calls on the phone, you would have a mirror in front of you so that you could actually watch your facial expressions and, that used to come through in your voice. So now, Delmae, I'm seeing some photos of some celebrities in the background on your wall there. So tell us a little bit about what happened in those scenarios and how perhaps the way you presented yourself helped you, with those situations where you were meeting people of influence.
Well, with Peter Overton, he came to one of our events, and very fortunate to be able to work with him on a couple of occasions, which was awesome. Just such a gentle, nice man. With Richard Branson, that's an interesting one. The energy that man has, I have not met anyone with that much energy. You just standing beside him, you could feel this energy, which was, I came away from that just like, wow. It was worth the experience to meet him just for who he was, whether you like him or not doesn't really matter. I just found that and what struck me the most with him is the energy. And to be able to project that energy amongst so many people, it blows my mind.
I had another wonderful client I had actually just recently went to Necker Island this year. So she had was able to work with him and, some fabulous people in that particular program. So yeah, she said the same. She came back with all sorts of opportunities presented to her. But it was really important when you're put in that situation, to know you're presenting well, to know you're meeting them at that level is really important.
Yeah. And the other photos are very precious. They're my grandchildren.
Yes. Yeah, family is really important. And it's really important as an executive woman as well, if you've got family, because they're a major part of your life. It's not just all about work. So one of the things I often find is that women can dress for work really easily, but when it comes to their more social, personal engagements, they don't know what to do. And so they fall over in this particular area. And so they lose that presence. So, and we all as women will go through, family situations, and it's about being organized, isn't it? It's about knowing that you've got everything at your disposal that's going to help you, have those family moments. and dress well, and, be able to step out of that into a professional role as well, and just have it be seamless with no distractions and no, oh my God, I can't do this well, or I'm not going to be able to dress for that. What am I going to wear for this? What am I going to wear for that? It's about being consistent, I think, in how you present yourself to the world.
Yeah, and that's really having your wardrobe structured, having everything laid out. I have mine color coded because I like color coding. But it also helps when you're getting dressed. It's like, oh, okay. And that's what I find actually is with the wardrobe that I now have, thanks to you, is that I can pull a piece out and go, oh, maybe I'll wear that. And I know that it's going to go together. I don't have to stop and think about the color coordination because I know it's going to work. And that takes the hard work out of it. And you know that if you change the pair of shoes, you can dress something down. Or if you wear a different pair of shoes, you can dress it up enormously. And also just the colours alone. This morning my husband said to me, oh, you're all dressed up. And I said, well, and it's really just the colour. It's the colour that makes the world of difference. A simple top and white pants and, it looks amazing.
Yeah, people notice those things. And I think that was one of the big things, in COVID, people were, putting on the hoodies and things like that to work in, and, because they're at home, they're in their very comfortable environment, and sort of it lent itself to them dressing like that. And it was the exceptional few who realised that it made a difference if they actually still dressed the way as if they were going to work. It put them in a different mindset. It put them in a different space. They felt they were more productive. And, that's what got them through that particular situation. And I think that's an important point to make, is that how you dress impacts how you feel, how you act, and how others feel and act towards you as well. So, Delmae, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? You're retired now. I know you want to spend a lot more time with your children, but you're also writing. So tell us about your writing that you're doing.
Yeah, well, that kind of came about, obviously, with the pandemic and stuff. My son said to me, Mum, I want your knowledge. I want your knowledge. And I go, well, what do you mean you want my knowledge? And it was the health knowledge because, my mother, my grandmother, they passed down knowledge that I had just taken for granted. And that's really the reality. Most people take the knowledge that they have for granted. And to me, it wasn't anything special. It was just what I did and how I lived my life. And with the pandemic and the awareness of health, more so, he said, look, my friends need to know what you know as well. Can you start writing some things for me? And I thought, oh, okay, all right. So I'd started doing some daily little health tips, and it ended up into, a book. So, and that's been shared around many places, and I was quite surprised as to how many of them I actually sold. So, yeah, I had them in print. I had to print it again.
I have to say that your book has lots of fabulous pieces of information in there. I've actually reached out for it a few times myself, for my family. But you're right, and I remember saying that to my son when my father was, getting on. I said, you know what, he's not going to be around forever. Tap into the wisdom, tap into the knowledge, learn as much as you can, because once they're gone, they're gone.
Yeah.
I think it's fabulous that you're writing all of this down and making history really with all of this. My daughter's coming to me for a little while soon, and she said, I can't wait, Mum. I can't wait to come and be back at home to learn, watch all your recipes and learn all of what you do in the kitchen again. She said, I've forgotten. She said, you're going to have to write it all down.
And that's the thing, is that as they get older, they appreciate that. When they're with you and you're the mother teaching them, it's like, oh, do I have to take that medicine, or, whatever. But it was really interesting. My son sent me a photo the other day, and he said the first time ever, and he had an onion on his foot.
I won't even ask what that was all about.
No, but it was just the old-fashioned remedy, and he couldn't believe that he was doing it himself.
Well, look, I'm not sure. Have you still got some clients that you're mentoring in this space?
Look, I've been to maybe one at the most, but I really I'm enjoying not being in that space. But it would have to be a very special person that I mentored. I do keep in touch with some people that I do help from time to time, but I'm not actively looking for clients.
No, I was just going to say, in your capacity as a coach and mentor to others, you know, how did you impart your knowledge on the whole concept of executive presence and, empower them with that knowledge so it could be a strength for them as well?
So how did I, or how would I?
How did you, how would you?
Um, the one-on-one consulting, I absolutely did love that. I love the one-on-one consulting because you can really get inside people's heads. And with sales, with consulting, with business, it really is a mindset. Um, and you've got to get your head straight to be able to have success. So with the one-on-one, I just loved being able to have that. And you would have to have sometimes the really hard conversations. And even with my team, it was quite funny. They used to call me motherly. And they'd say, watch out, motherly's going to come and kick your butt. Because they knew it was done out of, care.
Well, look, if anyone's enjoyed this conversation and they'd like to reach out for Delmae, I can honestly say she's the warmest, most caring person I think I've ever met. And sometimes we need that in our lives. We can all go and do all of these amazing professional development programs and just keep going, but sometimes we need someone to actually stop us in our tracks and deliver it from the heart and from someone who's been through so many of life's experiences, and you have done that. So thank you, Delmae. It's been a pleasure having you on this series.
My
Really
pleasure,
enjoyed
Julie.
catching up
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you.
You're
Thanks for having me.
welcome.